Hello, welcome back. This is Miniature Mike, and it's been a while since I've done an update on this video, this kind of project I'm working on, but I come from a statistics background, and I really wanted to use the available data from the game itself to be able to construct some sort of tool to be able to better understand, the characters in the game, kind of how they fare. Are they costed well? Are they not costed well? And then more than that, be able to try to put all this data together and figure out how can I make maybe like an equation that can give me a good starting point if I want to make a custom character. I did some work on it. You can check it out. There's a video from several months ago where I kind of got rolling with it, but I wanted to kind of show you and walk you through kind of my process of how I kind of built this thing and put it together. So if you've seen the last one before, you'll notice a few things that I have. So over here, I got set name. This isn't really all that important, although later it might be important. One viewer a while ago wanted to say, hey, if you kind of just like look at the newer sets and then you recost the characters in the old sets, how would they fare? You can actually do that. I can do an analysis here where I get rid of the characters from the old sets, just look at the new sets, and then I can apply that equation I get eventually to the old sets, and you can see that in a lot of the cases, it'll just rank them a lot lower. It'll just be like, okay, maybe your Han Solo's a 28, maybe you should actually be like a 22, not a 22, but like a 23 or 22 or something like that, yeah. So we got the name of the character. I want to be able to see who this character is, like, after I've put this together, get this linear model, what do they actually cost, and what does my model think they should cost? The natural log cost transform, I'll get into this in a sec. So we have the cost of the character, but then what the natural log cost transform is it's basically just, I just take the natural log, it's a math thing, I take the natural log of the cost, and the reason I do that is when you take the natural log of the cost, it makes it a lot easier when you do things like statistical analysis. It makes it much easier for there to be kind of less variation in the data, much easier to kind of draw connections. And then I have all of the variables I want to use to predict cost. You'll notice there's things missing. It's not done yet because there's some things that are going to be kind of arduous to figure out, but that's why I wanted to start with most important things. I got HP. I think the stats are going to be important. Defense is important. Attack. Damage. More than just base damage, though, I kind of split into two things. I did, what's your max damage? Meaning, like, aside from special abilities that can modify damage, say I have, like, double attack and 20 damage. That means I got 2 attacks total, and I got 40 damage, max damage. So I think that's a really, really good way of trying to figure out, like, okay, how much firepower can this person do? There's some people who have one shot, but it's 30 damage. There's some people that have triple attack, and they do 10 damage each shot. That's an important thing to figure out. The special ability count. I know this is kind of this might not seem very important, but it's actually kind of surprising how important it turns out being. This is special abilities minus melee attack and minus unique. I don't include those, and I say melee attack's its own important factor I want to keep in mind. You'll notice that there tends to be a kind of a trend where you're going to see that characters with more special abilities tend to cost more, like this will bump up their cost, and people with less special abilities tend to not cost as much. There's obviously exceptions for sure, but this is an important variable to kind of like get started. Savage, true or false, melee, true or false, and then are you a mounted weapon, true or false. The reinforcements and reserves, I'm actually not going to include this in the model. I decided to just kind of hard code it later and say, hey, if my model thinks you cost 15, but you have reinforcements 30, now you're 45. Or something like that, basically. Because at the end of the day, that's kind of what it is. Reinforcements is just an opportunity to make the guy cost cheaper, but be able to choose units after you see the enemy. And then reinforcements is a little bit different. Sorry, reserves, reinforcements. Reserves is more like, okay, if I get lucky and roll the right thing, then I can have something. That's a little bit harder. Kind of how I decided to do reserves is I basically said, okay, I'm going to count this as half of what a reinforcement would be, or maybe a quarter of what reinforcements would be, to try to like more properly kind of add that in there. It didn't really make sense to add it as part of the model, kind of throw some stuff off. I do force renewal. Do you have it? Like, what is your force renewal level? What isn't it? What force points do you start with? How much do you start with? And then how many force powers do you have? And then finally, do you have a commander effect or not? Of course, I want to go a step further on that eventually because some commander effects are amazing and some stink. However, I did notice in general that there seems to be a big difference between if you have a commander effect or not that will raise your average cost. So let's get started. I want to show you kind of how my methodology of going about this. So let's start right here. I want to be able to put together and see what variables matter, which ones don't, and I want to see are there certain variables that I want to cube, or not cube, do I want to have quadratic terms? So I'm going to take a look and say fit y by x. I'm going to say natural. I'm not going to do cost. I'm going to do it against the natural log of the cost. And then I'm going to stick in all of these variables right here. I'm going to say x factor. Okay. Let's say okay. And then what we got here is now I'm graphing every variable against cost so that I can see what's going on here. How's it changing? So right now I see, okay, let's see, I'm doing natural log cost transform versus HP. And I want to include this in my model, but I want to know, should this be just a linear thing that I stick in there, or do I want this term to be polynomial? I can tell, okay, if I go from low cost to high cost, I can see that cost essentially, HP, when I go low HP to high HP, I can see like, okay, there definitely seems to be some curvature in the amount of cost being associated, meaning like once you get to a certain level of HP, that level of that cost that's assigned to a character starts to kind of level off. I think this is actually a good candidate to just say, hey, I think it would be good to have a quadratic term into this formula. I'm going to do the same thing with all of these ones real quick. I'm going to fit a line. I'm going to fit a polynomial quadratic term. Honestly, this one is a little less convincing to me. I think I might leave defense as a single term. Let's take a look at attack. I'm going to fit line, fit polynomial. This one, again, looks pretty okay for me to just kind of leave the way it is. Max damage. I'm actually going to skip damage. I'm not going to include damage because I want to include max damage. Okay, this one looks like it might be good to have a quadratic in here. Absolutely. So you can see there's a ton of curvature in this data, so I definitely want to capture that. When you get higher max damage, doesn't necessarily mean that your cost is going to be like 150 or something like that. So it's a good thing. Definitely keep in mind here. Total attacks. How are we looking with our fit here? Same thing. I think it's going to be good to have a quadratic term here. Let's see. Special ability count. I think special ability count looks pretty good to just do a line. I'm not even going to do a quadratic on that one. That looks good. So let's take a look at Savage. There's only a couple Savage characters. Doesn't look super significant here. I'm just going to leave it. You can definitely see there's a difference between melee, and you can see this. Check this out. Is it going to be able to let me do it though? TT test means it's in deviation. Yeah, you can see here. What you got going on here for the mean, you can see that definitely a difference in means. You have one mean being down here, which is like 2.3, and the other one's being 3.1. So essentially, this is telling you that on average, if you don't have melee attack, you'll actually cost a little bit less. But if you do have melee attack, you tend to cost a little bit more. Some of the reasons, there's other reasons for why that is. It could be, you have like a lot of other powers, a lot of things that kind of bump you up, but definitely melee attack is something to keep in mind when you're looking at different costs. Infant and reserves, like I said, I'm not going to include this one. That's going to be tacked on later. I like force renewal. To be able to, I'm going to put a quadratic term on force renewal. It's very curved. Let's see here. Force. I'm going to do a line just for force on this one. I think force power count. Same thing here. I think it's good to just say, let's do just a line. Maybe quadratic's better actually. Nah, line's fine. Okay, so I got all my variables and I can see how I want to put them into my linear model. So I'm going to move this out of the way, and then I'm going to construct my linear model here. And if this is a nerdy video, it's not for you, no problem, feel free to tune out. But if this is interesting, please definitely stay on, ask questions. I'd love to answer fun comments and questions about what I'm doing, because I love doing this type of stuff. I'm going to school for it. I've gone to school for it, and it's definitely fun to leverage these tools and especially in a fun way. So I want to predict the natural log of the cost. And actually, it shouldn't even be that. Hold on a second. Formula, yeah, looks good. I'm going to rename it though. I'm just going to say natural log cost. That's more appropriate. Okay, there we go. So we're going to do fit model, natural log cost. I want to stick in all of this stuff. So I'm going to add HP. I'm going to cross HP because I saw that this one had a curved thing that I wanted to do. So let's keep that in mind. Defense, attack, max damage. I want to be able to model max damage into this finally. That's going to be really nice. However, max damage needs to have a quadratic term in there. Oops, let's get rid of this one. Max damage cross. Let's do total attacks. Add cross. And then let's do special ability count. This one was just going to be thrown in there. Let's add all these guys in. Add them all. Man, this is going to have a lot of variables in here. This is a terrible model. Let's do force renewal. Add it. And then let's do crossing the force renewal. And then I think that's it. I think all after that I just was going to do single variables. So let's do force power count, and do you have a commander effect or not? Boom. Let's go. Let's hit run. See what we got. Bam. So essentially what we got going on here is this tells me the effect summary. What's the most important thing? Like what factor most influences what a character's cost is going to be predicted by. And you can see here I excluded some data points. Like I didn't want to include the force spirits. I didn't include the AT-AT. That's a terrible idea. It's going to mess up your model. And we can deal with those guys later. So you can see looking at this, we have my effect summary. You can see that hit points is the most important thing. Like HP is the greatest predictor of what a character's cost is going to be. Next by the square of HP. And then the third one is actually extremely important. How many special abilities do you have? So I think this is a good starting point because for special abilities, if you have a lot of special abilities, boom, and you find out that you should be predicted at a certain cost, then from there you can look and be like, well, do these special abilities kind of suck or do these like crazy powerful? And then from there you can get your median level and you can say, okay, this guy costs 35, but he's got awesome special abilities, so maybe I'll raise him up to a 40. He doesn't have very good special abilities, so maybe I'll keep him where he's at or maybe lower him to like a 32 or something. So I think those are good things to keep in mind after you've run this model. Max damage, super important. Half commander effect, also very important. His melee is also important. These are all very, very important factors. Defense is important in this one. Attack's important. The square of your max damage is also important because there's that kind of curvature in the data. And then you have the square of your total attacks, and then finally total attacks. And I'm drawing the line right there. In statistics, you have this thing called a p-value, and as soon as you hit 0.5 for the most part, that essentially says, hey, anything lower than this, that means this is a really important variable you got to include. If it's not, don't worry about it. According to this, force renewal was actually not really considered an important. It wasn't considered an important basically aspect here. I'm going to include it anyways though, actually, because I think force renewal can be important, especially when coming to costing Jedi and Force users. Mounted weapons not important. The amount of force powers you have not important. Savage doesn't matter at all. How many force you start with, literally, it does not have anything to do with your cost. And then the square of force renewal, that also is just not important whatsoever. So I'm going to keep these top ones. I'm taking a look. I think this all looks pretty solid overall. I mean, the low end's kind of yikes, but I think it's fine. What I'm going to do now, though, and get a hold of this, I'm going to rerun this thing, but I'm going to get rid of those, I'm going to get rid of all that stuff that wasn't necessary. So I'm going to say redo, relaunch analysis, boom. And you could see, I don't need to do this whole thing, I'm going to get rid of all of those things that were not very helpful, not important at all. So I want to keep all of these on top for sure. Total attacks I'm keeping the square of total attacks. I'm keeping special ability count. Savage, sorry, but you're gone. Melee staying. My weapon's gone. I'm going to keep force renewal. This is gone, force power count, and I'm going to keep commander effect. That was one of the really important ones. So let's see, do I like everything I got here? Special ability count, HP, defense. I think this is great. This is everything I wanted to include. Let's see, my weapon force power count. Okay, I like it. Now that I got this, I'm going to hit run, and you're going to notice it is just a little bit different. Not crazy different. It doesn't like some of the ones as much anymore, but overall, I like what I got. I'm going to keep them. And now, the fun part is, I'm going to hit... I'm not going to look into these too much. I don't want to bore you crazy. But now what I can say is I can say, hey, please save what the predicted values should be. So then now I have a value here for predicted values. And now with the predicted values, I can then say, okay, so predicted values, well, I want to see how these things compare to the actual cost of how, like, did I make a good prediction? Did I make a bad prediction? And where do we need to go from there? So I'm going to make a new column. I'm going to say hit formula. Let's see. Let's do column 21. I'm going to call this, I'm going to do a formula. It's going to be, I'm going to take the exponential of the predicted natural log cost. So what this is basically, as you saw, I had cost. I want to predict cost, but I had to take the log of that data so that I could make a much better model. And then when I did all my data, I made predictions about the natural log of the cost. But I want to know what the real cost is. So this is kind of undoing that whole process so that I can kind of have apples to apples. I'm going to hit apply. Now I have actual cost estimates that are pretty sweet. So I'm going to say here, column info, I want to change the name of this to cost prediction. I say cost prediction. Let's see, I'll say pre-reserves, since I haven't included those guys yet. Reserves. I like it. Let's see, format. I need to figure out how to do, how to change. Yeah, I need to figure out how to change. What? This is too many decimal points. I don't like this very much. Can I change this? This is gonna drive me crazy. All right, let's see here. I'm gonna see if I can change the amount of decimal points so it makes more sense to all you guys. All right, I cleaned this up a little bit so now you can see the cost. It's gonna be really nice. Okay, so let's compare these. I'm gonna make over here with cost. I'm gonna say insert column, and I'm gonna say predicted cost. Sweet, that'd be perfect. I'm gonna say formula, and now with this one, I'm gonna say cost pre-reserves plus reserves, because I need to be able to adjust the cost for someone who has this power, and it's gonna be really nice. Okay, I'm gonna change column info. I'm gonna change width you to 4 so that it's much easier to take a look at the costs, how they compare. Let's see how we do. Okay, so just kind of some general things from the start. You can see this says Jabba the Hutt. It costs 50. My predicted him to be a 53.1. Now this isn't incorporating speed, and if it did, it would probably dock him a bit for that. So that's something cool to keep in mind, but it did a really good job of almost getting him. And we got Garambel Iblis. In real life, he cost 45. Mine did 53.3, so a little overcosted him. Wat Tambor, 35. My prediction was 32. We got 30 and 30, so new gun rays right on the bat. Lobot's exactly right. Caesar is, mine overcost Caesar just a little bit. It overvaluates, I think, maybe like some of his stats and commander effect, especially his HP. Definitely evaluates that a lot. Is Techno Union Foreman right on the bat. Talon Card overdoes him a little bit. Supreme Chancellor Palpatine undervalues him a little bit. But you can see here Sandhill was actually overvalued Sandhill quite a bit. Too much there. Rhodium Black Sun Vigo. So you can just scroll down and see like there's some really nice things going on, like Clone Wars, Yoda on Kaibuk. My thing thought, hey, maybe he should be 48. In real life, he's a 51. One of the big differences is the Force Spirits. I'm not even going to include them because Force Spirits are a totally different animal. But you can see like Yoda Jedi Master. This thing's like, yeah, I think Yoda Jedi Master should be more like a 55. In the game, he's a 64. I actually agree with that. Yoda Jedi Master is way overdone. Let's do 55. I think something like that makes a lot more sense for him. Yaminkar, this saying is 20. He's a 19. Sure. There's a lot of different universe. The Jedi Knight. This is like, yeah, Jedi Knight should be like 16 or 17, not 21. That's too much. I agree with that. We got the Bounty Hunters, the Young Krayt Dragon. This thing is saying 40 instead of 50. So I could go through all of these things. This is kind of what it's predicting the cost should be versus what it actually is. Utapau Soldier, it guesses 10. Mine said 10. So it actually does a pretty sweet job. So what I want to try and take a look at here is I want to see which ones were the most off. So I'm going to insert a new column right here. I'm going to say insert columns. I'm going to do an equation. I'm going to say formula. I'm going to say absolute value. And for the absolute value, I want to see how my predicted cost minus my actual cost. How off am I, and who's the most off? Like, what are situations where I am just like way off target here? Let's do column info. Change this to a 4 so that we got a good number going on here that we can make sense of. And then let's change this. Let's see. How far off am I? There we go. I think this would be a good way to do. And then I'm going to sort. Let's see. Rows. Sort. Oh, no, it's not the right way to do it. Sort's in here. Descending. Okay, I gotta exit out some of these other windows that I have open here that I don't need. It's gonna freak out if I change certain things. So I'm gonna close this, close that down, close that down, close that down. Perfect. Okay, let's now finally see how far off I am. Sort, descending. Okay, so see, how am I going on this? So AT-AT Imperial Walker, I did exclude it, so it's not even including that, but it's still gonna apply the equation to the model anyway, just for fun. So forget about that one. Let's take a look here. So it says the character I was most off on was Darth Sion. I am not surprised at all. My model thought Darth Sion should be a 32, but he's a 69, and we all know why, because he can come back to life maybe twice, maybe once. I don't know. It actually makes a lot of sense. Like, if you look at Darth Sion's just stats and abilities on face value, yeah, he should be a 32. That actually is a really good rating if you're not counting the impact of Eternal Hatred. But with Eternal Hatred, that's kind of one of those cases where it's like, okay, I make a character with the sweet power, and baseline, he should be a 32. But then when you have a power like that, that's when you're going to probably have to have some deliberation and figure out, okay, maybe this power should bump him up by 30 or something like that. Let's take a look and see what else is way off. Lord Hoth is way off. He costs 44, but mine did 68.5. I think one of the reasons for that, a couple things. A little bit of power creep, and I think Lord Hoth, I think he has a lot of impulsive powers, so I think he gets impulsive twin attack, and that's huge because my model is assuming that right off the bat, he gets 4 attacks. He doesn't, so that's another little thing where it's like, okay, that's gotta account for that. The whole point of this is I really want this to be simple as possible, but it has to be somewhat complicated to be able to properly take care of all this crap. Let's see, what else do we got here? I'm off on Darth Plagueis. Obviously, this guy does no damage. He's all special force power related, and force powers are not even part of this model, actually, because it didn't determine, my full model didn't determine that force powers were even that significant in terms of, does it contribute to the cost? Is it a significant contributor to the cost? That makes a lot of sense. Miru, mine way overcosts him, because if you think about it, Miru's stats are crazy. Lots of damage. Like, gosh, you could even make an argument maybe he is a little undercosted in real life. I don't know. Bomar Monk, this is a good example of where my thing says he should probably cost 12, but he costs 32. This is a cool example where it's like, hey, got a power like Dominate. Maybe Dominate is a 20-point power, like a 20 cost power. You get it? Boom, it bumps you up by 20. You're going to see that Slime War right here. He's in the same boat. He costs 10, but in real life he costs 28. So I think this is the cool part. You get like Darth Caedus. Darth Caedus, like, if you're not including the strength of Zhang Ti flow walking, you might be like, oh yeah, just kind of looking at these general stats. He's not that great. He's okay. But this is another situation where like a certain first force power, a special ability can really bump up the scores a lot. So right now I'm just looking at the worst of the worst, and you can see like, okay, this is 19 off, 18, but you can see actually kind of quickly drops back down. Naga Sadao, my thing, he says he should be a 50, but he costs 64. It's actually a pretty big difference. There's a few reasons for why that is, but I think that's still like a decent guess for sure. Captain Rex, my thing thinks he should be a 46 and not a 33. I kind of agree. I think he's way undercosted. But going down here, you can go, there's so many characters. This is a difference of 10. Now I'm at a difference of 5 right here. So you can see that I'm like 75% through all the characters. I'm only, look, that's at character 198. And my model is only plus or minus 5 cost off of what they actually costed in real life. That's actually a pretty awesome. So it's now you're at a situation where it's like, hey, I think Moff Jerjerrod should be 17. This costed him at 12. You know, I think maybe that's an issue where my model can do a little bit better. Where it's like, hey, the commander effect's not that great. Special abilities aren't that cool either. So maybe that's a little bit too high. But let's keep going down and see how much more accurate I can get to. This is the fun one. You get all the way down to 2.5 right here. So that's at number 400. That's about halfway through all the data. And that means halfway through all the data, I'm literally guessing just about everything at about 2.5 cost away from what the real cost is. That's actually pretty accurate in a lot of cases. Some instances you'll see it's not all that accurate. Some instances it's actually pretty solid, like Tusken Raider. My model thinks a Tusken Raider should be a 66.5. Is that too much? Yeah, that is too much. This should be a 4. That's the situation where it's just kind of like valuing certain things a little bit and it's influencing it, maybe not the right way. But you have characters like General Obi-Wan Kenobi. My thing says he should probably be like maybe a 57, guesses him at a 55. So you can see here, for a lot of the data, it's super accurate, like really, really, really accurate. And then for some things, you're just like one off, like a Qualish Technician, 7 versus 8, 19 versus 20 for Dark Trooper Phase 2. It's pretty cool. Like, for the most part, this does an awesome job at kind of getting a nice set level. But then when you get up here, you definitely get some situations where you might have some power creep, and some characters are way kind of maybe cost too much in the first place. And then you're going to have a lot of powers and so forth, special abilities that are very bloated and kind of really mess this up. So anyway, this is kind of where I'm at right now. I really like this tool as it stands. You can even export this equation, say to like Excel. You can type in, I'm going to do that in a future video where you can like type in a custom character. Boom, it'll give you like a starting value. And then based on what special abilities you give and so forth, you can then kind of raise it or lower it depending on that. But yeah, I hope this video didn't bore you too much. If you kind of stuck through it and watched it, absolutely ask a lot of questions, like, subscribe. I'd love to talk more about kind of what I'm doing here, kind of what I'm getting to. And for the most part, as you can see, like, there's some really cool stuff. There's a lot of, I think this equation or this linear model I'm putting together puts together a pretty solid, I'd say a pretty solid, I kind of guess of what the character should be. I think moving forward, some things I want to change is I want to make a distinguishing thing for commander effects. So if you have a great commander effect, I want to make sure that you're getting graded for it. If you have a bad one, I think speed is a good one too. There's some characters who are very fast, and it would be very good to be able to quantify that, because if you're a slow character, that should probably hold you back a little bit, like Jabba the Hutt's case. If you're a fast character, that actually might, improve your cost considerably. I'm not going to get too into the weeds though with like including every special ability, whether you have it or not. I think what this is ultimately going to be is like you put all your stats in, you put all like the quantity, special abilities, attacks, etc., and then it's going to give you a solid starting reference. And then based on how powerful of abilities and things that you gave your characters, you can then kind of tune it. You can do the fine tuning. So this whole thing is going to give you, it's going to do like the heavy work for you, tell you like where should this character be on the cost scale, and then you can do the fine tuning yourself based on what special abilities that you decide to give somebody. So anyways, this is it. I know I've been kind of rambling and talking around a lot, but I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, definitely a bit more heavy mathy video, statistical video. but definitely something I really enjoy doing. And definitely feel free. I'm going to scroll down here very slowly so that you can go through on your own if you're interested, and you can compare the cost versus my predicted cost of what they should be and how well this fared. And you can tell that in a lot of cases, it actually did really, really, really good. Really, really, really well. And then there's a lot of instances where maybe it was off. Maybe there's something I'm not including that I should be including. And it's something I'll have to iterate next time. But I think for now, I really, really like the progress of where I've come on this. In my first video I did, I wasn't including any quadratic terms at all. So I think including that helped add a little bit of curvature that made this model just a little bit more accurate in the first place. So anyways, I'm just going to scroll down a couple more times. That way, if you want to pause the video and just kind of take a look at any of these predictions, you can take a look and see how predicted versus cost looks. And then maybe you'll see a lot of characters. You're like, yeah, maybe this guy should be cheaper. Maybe he should be more expensive. Maybe he should be tuned a little bit differently. So anyway, we're almost down to the end of it where things are pretty darn accurate. The most accurate one was Khal Katarn Battlemaster. 54, 54, 12, 12 for Dia Shan. So looks like that went really, really well. Anyways, I'll leave it there. I appreciate you sticking through this video again. Like I've already said like 4 times, please like, please comment, please subscribe. This is a video I'd especially really, really like the community to comment on and ask questions about, because I've had a lot of people reach out to me about, hey, what are your thoughts on putting together calculators and things, using tools to appropriately cost characters. I think this is a great way to do a starting point, and then you can go from there. So this won't be my last video. I'll put together another video with some tweaks that I do later in the future, so definitely have to look forward to that. And hopefully I don't take as much time to get to that point, because it took a lot of time to kind of crank this out and get it the way I wanted it to, but it is what it is. So anyways, until next time, I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one.